फतेह बुलाओ वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह। अज साडा सैशन जिस तरह हर हफ्ते हुंदा इंग्लिश कथा, असी नाल नाल इंग्लिश विच नाल नाल पंजाबी विच इकट्ठे होके गुरबाणी दा फरमान, द मैसेज ऑफ धन धन श्री गुरु ग्रंथ साहिब जी असी इकट्ठे होके समझोगे खोजोगे। So today the topic of today's session is relationships. Those who attended last week's divan, जेड़े पिछले हफ्ते आए सी, थानू चेता होना, you probably remember that we were speaking about this game of life, इस खेल जिहड़ा परमात्मा ने रचाया। मेरे प्रभ साचे एक खेल रचाया, ते इस खेल दे विच गुरबाणी दा मानिया कि दिवस रात दोई दाई दाया खेलै सगल जगत, that the entire world is playing in this game of day and night. And one aspect of this game is our worldly lives. That worldly aspect of our life that we are all very practiced in. Sanu sareyan nu pata si kiਵੇਂ jeena from a worldly perspective. We know how to look after our families. We know how to go to work and earn money for our families. We know how to dress well. We know how to prepare foods. We know very well. ਅਸੀਂ ਦ੍ਰਿੜ ਕਰਤਾ ਸਾਡੇ ਮਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਜੀਵਨ ਜੀਣਾ, how do we live in this worldly life. But there's one aspect of our life that we have not yet understood fully. That message of Tan Tan Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji is about our spiritual lives. Gurbani da furmaniya that even if we know everything from a worldly perspective, that we know how to be successful within this world, that we know how to prepare many different kinds of foods, that we know how to host guests, that we know how to present ourselves in front of a room full of people, we know how to maintain relationships. But what do we not yet know? And that is what we are going to be discussing today. What is that gap, that missing part in our lives, in our journey, that we are all yearning to know more about, but very few of us do? In Gurbani, Guruji says, "Kaho Nanak eho khel kathan hai, kinhu gurmukh jana." That there are few beings within this world that have gone beyond just worldly aspects of life, that are doing forge of the spiritual aspects of our life. Tan Tan Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji tells us that even those who have mastered every aspect of life, if you ask them, have they mastered peace? There will be very few that will say yes. Sagal Shreshth ko Raja Dukhiya, Har ka naam japat hoy sukhi. That even the greatest emperors, rajas in the world are dukhi. And last week we went into a lot of depth, understanding the khel, understanding Trigun Maya, जिंदा ਅਸੀਂ ਸਮਝਿਆ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਾਡੇ ਮਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤ੍ਰੈ ਗੁਣ ਤੇ ਹੀ ਗੁਣੀ ਸੰਸਾਰ ਪਰਮ ਸੁੱਤਾ, ਕਿ ਸਾਡਾ ਮਨ ਸੁੱਤਾ ਪਿਆ ਤ੍ਰੈ ਗੁਣਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ. These three states of thought, ਤ੍ਰੈ means three, these three states of thought that we are in all day long, from that the mind is asleep in. Guruji taught us, last week we understood that it's our mind being asleep in those three states of thought: Nindya, Chugli, Irkha, Dubda, Dvait, Nafrat, Asha, Bilasha, Triya, Fikr, Chinta. We are caught up in these thoughts day in, day out. ਸਾਡਾ ਮਨ ਥਿਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਕਦੇ ਵੀ. And we understood last week that this is the cause of unhappiness. But what those ਪੰਜ inside of us, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪੰਜ ਸਾਡੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਬੈਠੇ ਹਨ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਦੇਈ ਜਾਂਦੇ, every minute, every moment, with every single breath, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਪੌਣ, ਪਵਨ, that is the way that we are connected to Maya. If you think about a baby in the mother's womb, that is not yet connected to Maya's realm, is sustained by Naam. Guruji tells us, Mata ke udar mein pritpal kare, that the baby in the womb is being sustained by Naam. It has no access to the breath yet, that pavan, that pawn. And the moment that the mind, the body, the baby is born into this material realm, it takes its first breath. And it's that breath, that pavan, that connects the mind to Maya. With every single breath that we take, Gurmukh Pyare, we take vichar. Vichar are brought into our mind. Guruji tells us that there are two realms operating here. There is the realm of pavan, of pawn, of breath, of Maya. And there is the realm of Naam, of Shabad, of Brahm. And these realms are merged in a way, you could say. Gurbani says, Maya Brahm Rame Sab Sam. That everywhere within this world that we live in, there is Maya and there is Brahm. And what we were understanding last week is that mind that Guruji calls Gurmukh, again we are referring to the mind, the status of the mind. You know, we have our WhatsApp status, don't we? In the same way that WhatsApp status is always changing. Sometimes we are busy, sometimes we are free, sometimes we are saying that we're happy, feeling relaxed, feeling stressed. Just in the same way that the WhatsApp status is always changing, the mind's status is always changing. Now, when the mind is connected to Naam, Shabad, Paramatma, Brahm, the mind is called Gurmukh. And when the mind is connected to Maya, is connected to those Traigun, those three states of thought, is connected to Nindya, Chugli, Irkha, Asha, Bilasha, Trishna, then Guruji tells us that the status of the mind is Manmukh. And as we were understanding, just a quick recap, what we understood was that it doesn't matter what we have in this material realm, however many riches, however much worldly success, however many mansions, the mind without connection to Brahm, without understanding the Jivan Jaj, is going to experience dukh. And the opposite is true as well. Gurbani says that it doesn't matter if you don't have very much from a worldly perspective. We all have our different roles within this life. Some are given more wealth, worldly wealth. Some have bigger parvars. But Guruji is saying that whatever the role is that you've been given, it doesn't matter whether you have little from a worldly perspective. Je thoda vi hove, je thoda dhan vi hove, je bahute rishte vi nahi hove, par je sada man judya ya, je man has learnt to connect to Brahm, to Naam, to Shabad, then it will be in bliss. Then it will experience peace no matter what. Sometimes in this world we misunderstand Guruji's role within our lives. You know, when we get a new car or we earn lots of money, we say it's Maharaj's kirpa that we have this. And then when we look at other people who haven't got as much or who have lost their wealth or lose their wealth, what do we think about them then? Do we think that Maharaj's kirpa isn't upon them? When we read the history of Guru Ram Das Ji, we understand Guru Ram Das Ji was an orphan. And they were actually poor from a worldly perspective. They used to have to work hard to earn little bits of wealth to sustain themselves. But could we say that Maharaj Kirpa wasn't upon them? No, because that was just the role that they had been given in this life. We are all playing a game, Gurmukh Pyare. This world is like a stage. Like we go to the theatre, we go and watch a play. We have actors on the stage that are wearing different costumes, playing different characters. But not for one instant do those characters forget who they truly are. They may play the game with great intensity, they may play their role, they may cry, they may laugh, but not for one moment do those players forget that when they get off that stage, they will know who they truly are. That was just a play. Gurmukh Pyare, when the mind learns to connect to Naam, connect to Shabad, 24/7 with eyes open and eyes closed, the mind starts to gain wisdom. It gains mat. It gains the true understanding as to how to live in this world and what is true and what is false. And when we learn that mat, we start to recognize that we were always just in a play, here for a short time. Ehe jag supna, baji bani, khin mein khel khilai. That we've played within this realm so many times. Gurmukh Pyare, the topic today is about relationships, and so many of us have conflict in some relationships within our life. Whether it's marital relationships, whether it's brother-sister relationship, whether it's mother-daughter, father-son, in-law relationships, we will all find a place within our lives where there is conflict. And when we tune in, when we start to gain the wisdom from Dhan Dhan Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji about this world being a play, Gurmukh Pyare, then we take these conflicts in relationships from a different lens, from a different perspective. We don't personalize. Now imagine when we go to this play and we're watching in the audience and we see these two people fighting, and we may temporarily get drawn in. We might lose awareness that actually I'm just in the audience and I'm watching. The same thing when we watch films. But those members on that stage, they may even be fighting, there may even be disagreements there. But they know that they have no animosity to that other person because this is just a role that is being played out. Now what would it be like, Gurmukh Pyare, if we were to elevate our consciousness, our spiritual IQ to such an extent that we could not just theoretically grasp this idea, but truly feel that we are just actors in a play and this play is going to come to an end. How would that change our relationships? What would that mean about that person in front of you that didn't speak to you properly? What would that mean about somebody saying a harsh word? What would it mean if somebody wasn't coming onto your line of thinking? How much different would it feel within our mind, within our body? We can even sense that there would be a possibility of peace, even in spite of kalesh, in spite of conflict. And this is the path that Guruji is inviting us to walk upon, the path of eternal peace, in spite of what's happening within this material realm. So आज असी समझना है कि असी अपना मन उस stage ਨੂੰ पहुंचा सकते. How can we take that mind to that spiritually elevated state where it doesn't matter what's occurring in this worldly realm, that we can experience peace, we can experience bliss. Gurbani tells us, Dukh vich sukh manai. And we've read those lines, but what does it mean to have such a mind, such an elevated mind that we can move through the turbulence of life, this Bhav Sagar, this world ocean, not just of what's happening external, so many changes constantly. Health status changing, wealth status changing, relationship status changing, all of that turbulence. And then we have the internal turbulence inside Sometimes the mind is elevated, sometimes the mind is dukhi. Sometimes the mind can see no way out of a situation, and sometimes the mind is soaring above this world and feels elevated. Look at this turbulence, and Guruji's been talking about this turbulence as Bhav Sagar, as world ocean. And how does the mind, how does a being operate within this turbulent ocean? Last week we talked about a kinara, a shore, the river bank, a place that the mind can go, where it's not caught up in the waves. Yes, it can see them. Yes, the waves will still come. But the mind that is on the shore, that has managed to go beyond the Dragon Maya, is now not getting soaked by those waves, not drowning, but is looking upon and is still able to maintain stability, peace, and sahaj. Where is that place, Gurmukh Pyare, that the mind can go to? And when we ask Guruji, we ask, E man mereya, bin paudi mandir kyo chade ram. That temple of the Lord is so high up, how will the mind climb it without a ladder? E man mereya, bin bedi par na ambre ram. That ocean is so turbulent, my beloved is so far on the other side. How can this mind cross over without a boat? Par sajjan, apar pritam, gur shabad, surat langale. Guruji is saying that boat, that body, that is inside of you, that is Guru's shabad. And if we can attach our surti, Surta Shabad Langave, that Shabad will carry us across that world ocean. So before we start to do some chord using the board and pen, we're going to just experience the mind going into that state of sahaj. We're going to not just talk about the path, Gurmukh Pyare, Pade, Sune, Kya Hoye, Je Sahaj na Mileo Soye, because we know the wisdom. We've been listening to the wisdom from Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji for all of our lives. We have been reading, Pade, Sune, but what we haven't experienced is the state of Sahaj. So now we are invited by our beloved Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji to go beyond just listening, to go beyond just reading, and to start to experience change in our characters, to start to allow the wisdom to settle within our minds and bodies and transform our minds. Gur paras hamalo, mel kanchana hoya ram. That when the mind is attached to the perfect Guru, the wisdom, then just in the same way that the philosopher's stone, the mystical philosopher's stone, can transform iron to gold, the mind, no matter what state it has been in, no matter which of the Trigun that it resides in, it can be elevated and we can experience the highest status of being a human being. Gur paras hamalo mil kanchana hoya ram. So we're going to come together and attach our minds to the Shabad, to Shabad Guru, to Guru Mantra. And we're going to chant together as prescribed in Gurbani, Rasna Uchar, chanting with the tongue. Har Sravani Suniye. We're going to listen to the sound that's produced by these Sravan, these ears that we've been given to hear Paramatma's voice. Sache sunane no pathai. But before we even get to the Anhad Bani, to the Naad, to Paramatma di Awaaj, Tera Mukh Suhava Jio, Sahaj Tun Bani. Before we even get to that point, we need to train our ears to listen. Before the mind will be nirmal enough for us to hear our beloved's voice, that Sahaj Tun, that Naam, that Anhad Shabad that is resounding inside every single one of us 24/7. Before the mind is clear enough to do that, we have to train the mind to listen to the sound of our own voice as we chant the Guru Mantra. Guruji tells us, Tond meh dhyan, dhyan meh janiya, Gurmukh akat kahani. When we can learn to listen to the sound of our own voice, those thoughts will come. Those Tragun Maya will pull the mind away. But we, with the wisdom of Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, in the Sachi Sangat, where Paramatma themselves is Hazir, which Sangat, Har Prabha Vasse Jiyo. Don't ever underestimate the power of the Sangat. Sat Sangat de Gun Bahut Adkai, Gurbani tells us, you cannot count the gun of the Sat Sangat, where the mind can finally go above those dragon, release itself from those bonds, and experience that peace that we are all invited by our beloved to experience. So we're going to chant Vahe, and we're going to listen to the sound of our voice as we chant. Then we're going to chant Guru. And again, we're going to put our full dhyan, our concentration, in the sound of our voice as we chant, so that our mind may step onto that raft, may start to walk on that ladder towards the mandir, towards the temple of our beloved, where there is no dukh. Gurmukh andar sahaj hai, man chadya dashve akash. Othe ung na phuk hai, amrit naam sukhvas. Othe dukh sukh vyapat nahi, jithe atam ram prakash. We go up to that dasam dwar where there's no dukh, there's no phuk, there's sahaj, anand, bliss. Karo shuru. Vai Guru, 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 लोक लज्जा तो ऊपर उठना. Vai Guru, 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 Vaheguru, 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 Vaheguru,
Vaheguru,
Vaheguru, Vaheguru, Vaheguru, Vaheguru, Vaheguru, Vaheguru, Vaheguru, Vaheguru.
Vaheguru, Vaheguru, Vaheguru.
Continuing to chant Vaheguru, Vaheguru,
Vaheguru, Vaheguru, Vaheguru, Vaheguru, Vaheguru, Vaheguru, Vaheguru, Vaheguru, Vaheguru, Vaheguru, Vaheguru, Vaheguru, Vaheguru, Vaheguru, Vaheguru, Vaheguru, Vaheguru, Vaheguru.
Vaheguru, 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 अंतर्गत मन दे नाल जपना, मन दे नाल सुनना, chanting with the mind, listening with the mind. So as we पिछले हफ्ते समझा सी, we understood in the last session. For those who want to see the board more clearly, please feel free to come and sit here. Together we can do deeper chord. And last session we were starting to understand what is in this sarir. We were doing chord of this body. Gurmukha Bole, Sukaya, Khoj. And this week we're going to take it that one step further. We're going to understand how this khel of Maya and Brahm plays out within our relationships. Now you can bring to mind any relationship that you have, that you're struggling with right now, where there's some conflict, where there's some confusion as how to move forward. And we're going to understand from Gurmat wisdom how we can navigate such relationships, how we can stay connected to Naam, Shabad, Brahm, whilst we play within this desh, whilst we interact with our fellow family members, our parivar. And what difference it makes when we're able to connect to that higher wisdom. How that changes the way that we navigate our relationships. So the first thing that Guruji teaches us about our sanjog, our relationships with others, is that this is not the first time that we have come together in this life. If you look around at your family, your husband, wife, children, parents, although you may feel as if you have only known them in this life, when the mind starts to awaken through Naam and Shabad, the mind starts to recognize that the sanjog began far before this life. Guruji says, Purab janam ke mile sanjogi, ante ko na sahai. That sanjogs that we have within this life are from Pichle Janam. That throughout our Pichle Janam we have collected little bits of Namtan, which Gurbani calls Parchum. We've collected those little bits of Namtan. And those who have shared the most wealth come together in this life as Pati Patni, husband, wife. And then children, then mother, father. These relationships are all formed based on this previous sanjog that we have shared. So when we look around in our family home and we see all these different members, and we say, my mother, my father, my husband, my wife, my children, Guruji says that we are confused. Sade palekha pai gaya. That yes, we have been united with these members within this life, but Gurmukh Pyare, we have been together with these sanjogis for many lifetimes in different forms. Sometimes we have been the mother, sometimes we have been the child. Kete aake maap, kete aake bete, kete guru chelle hoye. Sometimes we've been the teacher, sometimes the student. We have taken all of these many forms, both within human life and within animal janam, kei janam. Pe keet patanga, kei janam ga jameen kuranga, kei janam pankhi sarp hoyo, kei janam haver brick joyo. Ehe jagdish milan ki bariya, chiran kale de sanjariya. And in every single lifetime when we came together with our sanjogis, in every single lifetime the veil was placed upon us and we believed our life in this world to be true. We believed that the only reason that we are here is to enjoy our family life, to do our karam, our worldly duties, and bas, then we end this life in that way. But that was confusion, that was a doubt, that was the veil that was placed over our eyes. Because when we are born, Gurmukh Pyare, immediately the mind connects to Pavan, to Pawan, to Maya, as we spoke about. And the mind is put to sleep in these vichar, in the belief that these sanjogis that we are with are our true rishte. And that this is the only life that we have known them. And once this life comes to an end, then we will stop, we will discontinue that sanjog. But Gurmukh Pyare, these sanjogs have begun from the beginning of this khel. The game started in Satyug, Dwapar, Treta. Now we're in Kaljug, the final stage of the game. And we have come together with these sanjogis. With what reason, with what purpose? Guruji is saying that this is our opportunity to come together. This is the team, the family members that we have been given to try and reach that true purpose that we have forgotten about in all the previous lifetimes. Hence we've come back again and again and again. But now Guruji is telling us, Pei Parapat, Manuk de Huriya, Gobind Milan ki ehe teri bariya, Avar kaaj tera kitna kaam, Mil Sadh Sangat Paj Keval Naam. That in fact we were brought together with our sanjogis for one purpose only, which was to experience the truth of who we are, to experience Paramatma, to to walk on that journey, do khoj of ourselves, step aside from the maya, the bone, the three states of thought, and discover the essence of who we are. Discover that naam that is vibrating inside of us. And Guruji is saying that if we were able to awaken to that purpose and to walk that path towards Milap of Paramatma, then we would have no kalesh. That we would recognize that within every single one of us is Paramatma's roop. That we would truly see that. So how do we, sitting in this darbar, walk that path for ourselves? Before we can see Paramatma inside our sanjogis, before we can look with that drishti, with that pure vision, we have to understand where we are currently at. What vision that we are looking at our sanjogis through. What lens we are using to see. Who has taken over our eyes, our ears? Gurbani says, Kal Jal, Jehva Arnani, Kanni Kal Sune Bikabani. That Kal, the senior of those Panj Dut inside of us, those Panj Chor, Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Mohankar. That leader of Tregun Kale Hi Sirkar, it says in Gurbani. That what we were viewing our sanjogis through was that lens colored by Maya, colored by Tregun, colored by Kal. And Guruji gives us the analogy of a mind. Our mind was meant to be king of this body. Kaya means Sarir, Kaya Nagari, Eho Man Raja. That the mind to be king of this Sarir. But what happened? Those Panj took over the mind. Those Panj inside that are constantly sending us thought after thought. Rajogun, Tamogun, Satogun, Kahiya, E Teri Sab Maya. And if you want to recap, you can watch this on Sikh Spirituality Network, where we explained what these three states were last week. Rajogun, Tamogun, Satogun, Kahiya, E Teri Sab Maya. In this state where we are colored by Maya, by Kal, we cannot see with clarity who our sanjogis really are. And let's see how this plays out practically, Gurmukh Pyare. Let's take two individuals. Now, let's say that both of these minds are asleep within Tregun. Both of these minds haven't yet done Pashan of Naam, Shabad inside of them. Both are simply being driven in this three states of Maya. Now let's take a practical example. Two beings come together, both of their minds asleep. One person says, why did you do this? Immediately that mind in its sleep spoke from with the tongue of the Panj. Those Panj came and sat on the rasana. We talked about the jal that is placed over eyes, ears, tongue. Because with this jal upon our senses, on these gyan indriya, we cannot speak sweetly. We cannot hear sweet speech either. We want to listen to slander and Nindya Chugli all day long. We cannot see Jyot in our partners. That Gurbani says, Man tu Jyot Sarup hai, Apna Mool Pashan. And instead, the mind asleep in Tregun can only see negativity, can only speak negativity, can only wants to listen to negativity. To those ears that are trapped in Tregun, slander is sweet. Talking about other people is sweet. So you take these two minds asleep within Tregun. One person speaks of Gaura Bachan because their mind is asleep. They are not connected to their Jyot. So then Krodh comes and sits on the tongue. And what does Krodh cause this person to speak? Person A and person B. Krodh causes this person to say, something harsh. Why did you do that? Why did you not warm up my food today on time? I came home after a long day of work. Why did you not warm up my food? That mind who didn't know how to connect to Naam Shabad speaks a Gaura Bachan, which has been spoken by those sponge inside. And now what does person B do? Person B also has not known how to connect to Naam Shabad, does not know how to come above Dragon, is also controlled by the Panch. So what happens, Gurmukh Pyare? The Gaura Bachan is spoken by person A. The person B, also in sleep, immediately the ears receive the Gaura Bachan. And who is sitting there listening? Home. Home comes and sits in that person's Shravan and listens to that Gaura Bachan. And what does Home respond? How dare you speak to me like that? In that moment, mind be asleep as well. The mind itself is not in the picture. The mind that was king, the mind that knew how to connect to Sahaj, is no longer in the picture, has been put to sleep. And instead, Home has come and retaliated to Krodh. How dare you speak to me like that? And what happens with person A? That agan builds inside. That agan, that Bhagat Kabir ji, Sheikh Fareed ji talk about kar kar eha ag unche chad ke dekhya ta kar kar eha ag. Which home was the fire in? Within this home of the body, Gurmukh Pyare. The mind that is in Tamo, Rajo, is in fire, is in agan. So now, person A, the fire is increasing inside. And that fire is growing and growing. Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Mohankar now have a brilliant opportunity to send more vichar, more thoughts to the mind of person A. How could she speak to me like this? Who does she think she is? And then what happens, Gurmukh Pyare? All of the past memories resurface. Who brings those past memories into the mind? The Panch. Because now they know they are winning. These Panch inside, these Panch Shor, they have taken over the running of the body kingdom. Now they know they're in charge. They're looking upon the mind and they're saying, that mind's gone to sleep. Now we can enjoy. Now we can do what we've been instructed to do, because Gurmukh Pyare, in this game, those sponge are also given this duty to take the mind into illusion. To take the mind, as part of this game, we have the two sides, don't we? We have Atma and we have Panch. This is the way, the design of the game. So now Agan is spoken out of person A's and person B is retaliating. And now you can see there's Agan everywhere. There's no peace, there's no Shanti, there's no Sahaj. There's just fire upon fire upon fire. And then Guruji tells us, awakens our mind. Can you see now that it was never you that was fighting with your Sanjogi? Who was fighting? Those sponge inside of us that are sitting inside, waiting for an opportunity that the mind becomes complacent, that the mind stops becoming conscious, stops connecting to Naam Shabad inside, so those Panch can jump in and vichar. Panch chor, chitta vikara, maya moka pasara. And this is how the Panch rule the kingdoms of our mind and body. Guruji says, Keh Kabir, Panch ko chagda, chagdat janam gavaya. From the beginning, time we enter into this life, to the end of this life, those Panch keep us in Ganesh. And what benefit is that for them? What can the mind not do whilst it's busy in Kalesh? What is it forgetting? Pei Parapat, Manukh de Huriya, Gobind milan ki ehe teri bariya, Avar kaaj tere kitana kaam, Mil saath sangat bhaj keval naam. And their hope, the Panch's hope is that we keep that mind spinning in Kalesh after Kalesh after Kalesh, so that the mind never does khoj, never looks deep within and asks the question, why am I really here? That the mind becomes so wrapped up in the worldly affairs, whether it's Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Mohankar, whether it's Trishna, whether it's following worldly dreams continuously, one thing after another, those sponge whisper in our ears, now that you've got this car, we need to move forward to the next goal. Now that you're successful here, we need to grow that success. The sponge whispering in our minds continuously. Because we didn't hear the voice of our beloved, because it's been so long since we heard our friend's voice, Atma, we mistook the voice of those sponge for our friend. Guruji says in Sukhmani Sahib, Jo Bairai Ta Syo Preet, that the one that was our enemy, those sponge whispering continuously, we believed those to be our friend. And the one that was our mitr, our friend, our Atma inside of us, Paramatma, we neglected their voice. We never searched, did khoj of that voice. We never listened to that voice. But that voice, Gurmukh Pyare, never stops calling us, never stops reaching out to us. Guruji says, Sada Balaiya, Mahal na Ave. That Paramatma is always calling us. The Naam, Anhat Shabad inside is always resounding. But because the mind has been doing friendship with the Panch for so many lifetimes, Gurmukh Pyare, the mind has forgotten the true friend. Kaun sada asli sajjan, kaun si sada asli mitr. Mitr pyara Nanak ji, main shad gavaya. कि ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਮਿੱਤਰ ਸਾਡਾ ਅਸਲੀ ਸੱਜਣ ਨੂੰ ਛੱਡ ਕੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਪੰਜਾਂ ਦੇ ਮਗਰ ਲੱਗੇ ਰਹੇ. We were listening to the voices of those sponge again and again, mistaking them for our voice. So Guruji says, now that we have the wisdom, now that we've been blessed to hear the message, let us walk that path, that internal path. Let us rise above the conflicts that the Panch are putting us in. Let us step outside of the way that we are living and operating and seek that Atma's voice inside of us. What would it look like, Gurmukh Pyare, if even one person within this relationship, what if their asan was in Naam and Shabad? Let's see how it would play out. We spoke about the Gurmukh, that mind is in Nijkar, in Dasam Dwar, Gurmukh andar sahaj hai, man chadya dashme akash. We understood the avastha of that Gurmukh that had learned to keep its asan in this Dasam Dwar. Now how does this play out when even one person learns this practice? When one person steps onto that boat, that ladder towards beloved. Let's see. Person A, mind is asleep, speaks a Kauda Bachan. Person B, mind awake, conscious, listening to Anhat Shabad. Their asan is in Dasam Dwar in Nijkar. That person being awake, that mind being awake, immediately sees that their sanjogi has been caught by those sponge. In that moment that Kauda Bachan is spoken, mind B is awake and aware. Panch paharua, dar mein rehte, inka nahi patyara, chet sochet, chit hoye raho, to le pragas ujara. That mind is enlightened, has the light of Prakash, and is awake, and in that moment recognizes that my Sanjogi has been controlled by those sponge. That my Sanjogi, who is Jyot Sarup, is in this moment, has been overtaken by those sponge. And what that mind does is it works to keep its asan in Dasam Dwar. It immediately takes its mind into connection Why? Guru. Why? Guru. Because it knows that any moment those Panch are going to try and control the mind. The Panch have seen an opportunity. This Gaura Bachan has been spoken, and those Panch are going to try and capture this mind, put this mind to sleep. But this mind awake and aware, who has a Puran Guru, who knows how to sit in Dasam Dwar in Nijkat, immediately connects to its home. Why? Guru. Why? Guru. And the mind with asara of Shabad, those thoughts can't infiltrate. Those Panch can't infiltrate. And so what happens? The agan that was given from A to B stops, is cooled, is soothed here. Tapat kadaha buj gaya, gur sital naam diyo. That agan that was received from A is now cooled and soothed by person B. That person doesn't retaliate, and that mind is left stunned and shocked. But maybe it's so caught up in the fire that it continues. But how long is that mind going to continue for without retaliation? In an argument, you let somebody speak and eventually they stop. If there's no retaliation, if there's no response coming from Panch, from the other person, eventually that mind stops. And if that mind doesn't stop, this mind connected to Naam Shabad may well need to step away. But it will be doing that guided by the wisdom of Naam, by the wisdom of Shabad. So Gurmukh Pyare Guruji says, Hoye ekattar, milo mere pai, dubda dur karo lagalai, har naame ki ho jori, Gurmukh baiso safa bashai, in bid pasa talo bir, Gurmukh naam jape din rati, ant kaal na lage peer. That we come together with our Sanjogis. We do Simran, we take some time aside. And even if there's one person who is too caught up in those bunch to want to sit, that's okay. You sit with yourself, you sit with those who will, and you connect to that Naam. You play the game. In the Bidapasata Lobi. You play the game now. You have the wisdom. Gurumukha Naam Jape Din Rati Antakal na lage. That the mind walks on this path of Shabad, of Naam. And Gurmukh Pyare, those in the Sangat will tell you, who have worked on this path, who have walked on this path of Shabad, they will tell you how it's transformed their lives. And they will tell you that in some instances, even those that were so disconnected from the path, Nastak, that was so overridden by those Panch, in the presence of a mind that's connected to Naam, that's connected to Shabad, even a mind like that can be awakened. Guruji talks about the sandalwood tree, Jandan, that the plants around the Jandan, the sandalwood tree, also take on that beautiful fragrance. But there is one plant, the bamboo tree, that no matter what is surrounding, no matter how fragrant, that plant does not take that fragrance, the bamboo tree, that is so stuck in its homeland that it cannot change. But that is not your responsibility, Gurmukh Pyare. Your invitation from our Paramatma beloved is to focus on ourselves. Aap savari, main mile aa sukh hoye. That if we want to find peace in this play of life, if we recognize that we are just Sanjogis here, yes, we have been put together, but at the end, who will go with you? Purab janam ke mile Sanjogi, ante ko na sahai. With that understanding and wisdom, we can focus on our path to better ourselves, to elevate ourselves, to experience that sukh for ourselves. And in the last few minutes, Gurmukh Pyare, we're going to experience that peace. We're going to practice that practice that's going to elevate our mind, so that no matter how much somebody is controlled by those Panch, we will be able to be stable and in Sahaj. And that practice is Gur Mantra Jap. So for the last few minutes that we have together in the Sangat, we're going to immerse ourselves in this practice. Gurmukh Pyare, it doesn't matter how much we know, how much wisdom we learn, until we can take the mind into its home, into Sahaj, into Sun. In those moments we need to most, we will not be able to connect them. So let us take our minds to that place with Asra of Shabad Guru. We take no vichar, elevate that mind and experience that peace. Simaro simar, simar sukha pavo, kal kalesh tan, mahe mitavo. Karo shuru. Vai Guru, 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 Vai Guru. So as we come to the end of this week's session, please forgive any mistakes made during this session. Guru Atte Sangat Bakshan Jog Hai, Baksh Lena Ji, and we will come together again next week in the same way to continue this 4-week series. So Gurmukh Pyare, whilst we wait for Kirtaniya to come on stage, let's connect to Simran and make these breaths safal. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Vaheguru.
Wow.